Yay.
Yeah. We'll see. It's preparing like it did before. Redirecting to YouTube. All right. It worked. We
Awesome.
are live. I'm live here with Chris Fryar. And
Hello.
hey, and Chris is very patient. We were supposed to start 10 minutes ago, and we're starting now. I'm just going to share this to Facebook real quick
Awesome.
so that people can join in. Okay.
Where's this out on Facebook?
Okay, I'm going to put, if you go to Sound and Rhythm Drumming Studio, sorry, Sound and Rhythm Drumming School, you can find it there.
Cool. There we go.
And okay, and this. All right, I'm posting it right now, and you should see it there.
Ta-da.
It works.
It works.
Yes, and we are live. Okay, welcome. My name's Clifford Kaufman. I'm in Nashville, Tennessee, a percussionist and educator, and I'm here with Chris Fryar. This is Clif Chats, and Chris was kind enough to join me from Birmingham. Is that correct?
Yeah. Yeah.
And thanks to John Scallici, a great guy and percussionist, and so thank you for being here. And I just want to tell people, and I'm just still sharing here, and that's why I'm kind of hesitating. Okay, and you can see my son is here. So this is the era of COVID balancing things. My wife gets home in about 10 minutes, and he's watching a show and is enjoying himself to get to do that. And his name is Riley. So thanks to John Scalisi for getting us in touch with each other, and or getting me in touch with you, and just want to tell people a little bit about you. So you play, Chris Fryar plays in the Zach Brown band. I believe you've been in the band for what, it's been over 10 years. Is that right?
Yeah. Since 2008.
Uh-huh. And I saw your one of your defining moments, which I think is a great one. You had been doing a blues gig about 4 hour drive away each way, 3 hour drive away each way, and then doing like a 4 hour gig. You've been doing that consistently, and this led to getting the call for your current gig, which would probably be the dream gig for a lot of people.
Well, yeah, probably so. Um, uh, I'm very blessed to. It seems like I just kind of stumbled into it, and it just sort of unfolded before me.
Uh huh.
But these sort of things, I feel that it's important to remember that opportunity may or may not come knocking, but when it does, very helpful if you have a skill set that helps you take advantage of that opportunity as it arises. So for
Yeah.
me, the skill set that I had at the time, um, which I still have, but it
That's
was
good.
the ability to to make charts and to learn music really quickly,
Uh huh.
and it just worked out. I got a call to audition for the band, and it, I had a very limited amount of time to learn the music, a little bit more than 24 hours.
Uh huh.
Had to learn a whole record's worth of music.
That's and that seems like that would be nearly impossible without being able to chart tunes. I would think.
Well, yeah, yeah. It would be a much more daunting task.
Uh
Uh, it, it was pretty intense, but I did it. Um, I learned everything well enough to get a call back, and the rest is kind of history.
yeah. So, what? How did you get a skill set that prepared you for your current gig?
Um, so I learned how to read music in many years ago when I was a kid in junior high band,
Uh huh.
and then had started. Um, I really had started like transcribing music or drum parts as best I
Oh,
could.
we have a surprise guest here.
Hey,
It's John Scallici.
Hey, brother.
how are you?
I'm good. Can you hear me?
Man, yes,
Good, good. How you doing, brother?
very well.
Good, man. Good.
Good to see you, John.
I hope I didn't interrupt something important.
Not at all. We're just talking about. I mean, yes, it is important. We're talking about
Well, yeah,
Chris's. You know how he was prepared when he got called to audition for Zach Brown Band. But before that, we had some technical issues and we started about 10 minutes late. So so we went to YouTube, which worked, and then from YouTube to Facebook. So it is on Facebook if you want to share it.
did you go to the Vic Firth YouTube about the cheeseburger?
No, what's that?
We were just kind of talking about that.
Okay.
Tell us about the cheeseburger, Vic Firth and cheeseburger.
Well, so I did I did a video about how I joined the Zach Brown Band
Mm-hmm.
um, for Vic Firth. It was that defining moment. It was $40 for the cheeseburgers.
Oh yeah. That's what we were talking about.
You would
Right.
Yeah,
play a 4-hour gig and it paid $40 in a cheeseburger. And
and not to mention almost about 6 hours of driving.
yeah, it
Yeah.
was it's just I didn't do it for any other reason other than I loved it, and I
Yeah.
still love it. I'm very cavalier about people call me up and hey man, I got a gig. It doesn't pay very much. I'm like I'll take it. It
Uh
doesn't
huh.
matter,
So you
Wow.
still will work whenever you have the opportunity.
of course.
Yeah.
I'd rather be working than not.
Yeah. Yeah,
No doubt.
likewise. And but that says something for you probably could say I'm gonna stay home a little more than someone maybe who doesn't have a gig that's
Well,
such a consistent regular gig.
yeah, well, I mean, I know a lot of guys who have done that. They reach a point where they go, well, I'm not leaving the house for less than.
Mm-hmm.
And while that's not I understand that some people just feel like they have to set a standard for themselves in that regard. Me, on the other hand, I would rather be playing a gig for a little bit
Right.
and playing no gig for nothing.
Yeah, and keeping the chops up, and I mean, there's a lot of reasons why it would be better to be playing a gig than at home watching something on Netflix.
Yeah, exactly. I'd rather be playing a gig for very little money than sitting at home watching other drummers play their gigs.
Yeah, exactly.
That's
So
right.
so
That's right.
and so John, I just want to introduce you. So John is a percussionist and drummer. You started with drum set, John. Is that correct?
Yeah, yeah. I started out playing drum set. Yeah,
Uh-huh. And
sure
John
did.
also does djembe and West African drumming and drum circle facilitation now. And that's how we know each other
Right.
through Taylor in Chicago. Um, and so Chris and John, feel free to jump in at any time with anything you've been wondering or any questions. Uh,
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I've got a few questions. I'll let Chris start because you look like you have something to say.
well, yeah, he was just talking about how he was prepared for the Zach Brown gig and how
Right.
he was able to chart tunes and read music and
We were talking about that when
Wow.
on. I had learned how to transcribe drum parts and learn drum parts and make cheat sheets for myself. And one band that I actually played with for a while was a band that John was the original drummer for. And I had to learn all of John's drum parts, and I had a very short amount of time to do it.
mm-hmm.
And so that skill set really came in handy, because all those parts were unique and different and very challenging. And John had created these beautiful musical parts, and I wanted to get them just right. So, it's so funny that I was just about to talk about that very situation and you hopped on. So it's great.
So listen, man. So who taught you that charting system? Because I know another friend of ours, Leif Bondarenko, said that, oh my goodness, Larry London,
Yeah.
whom he met in Nashville, rest in peace, taught him how to chart out songs. Who taught you that?
I I sort of so I taught myself my own sort of cheat sheet system that's not too far removed from what a lot of guys do. I had learned how to read and write music when I was
Right.
junior high and high school, and then just sort of developed this shorthand that worked for me, and then started to adapt it to other styles of charting that I was learning along the way. So I learned eventually I learned a Nashville number system that I use now,
Okay.
write down the actual, what the changes are. 'Cause I
Yeah.
think
The chords, the scale degree of the chord.
yeah, exactly. So and not only the scale degree, but the quality of the chord. Sometimes that can lead to a little bit of on the fly insight of how you want to approach a new chart.
Hmm.
It's just a tool, you
And
know.
so knowing that information informs you about different sounds,
Oh yeah,
rhythms, whatever you want to do to make the song.
without getting overly music theory about it, like
Yeah.
you're in a major key, which is sounding kind of happy, and you go to the bridge of the song and it's in a minor key with some diminished chords, then that's going to sound kind of dark and brooding by comparison.
Yeah.
And in order to create more tension and contrast, I may want to adjust my drum part to be um, either much more intense or much more sparse, or I'll
Yeah.
know what's happening with the chords, and it's just helpful to
Can you
to
give an example of that specifically for other drummers that might be watching right now that want to know, hey, well, what is he really talking about? Are we talking about changing from the hi-hat to the ride or to a floor tom if the things get dark?
Yeah, it could be any number of things, and there are really no right answers or wrong answers. It's all up to personal interpretation. But if you're so let's just say you're gonna on drum set you're playing the verses on the hi hat, with your right hand and kick,
Right.
and then you get to the choruses and you might want to open it up a little bit to like a half open hi hat, a little bit more splashy, and you get to the bridge and let's just keep it kick snare hat and say ride cymbal. You could you could change the texture of the bridge by switching to the ride cymbal and playing the same rhythm, or if you
Mm,
mix it up without necessarily changing the kick and the snare, you can take that ride cymbal pattern that you're going to play and play something a little bit more intricate. And I think one of the things that's really interesting about that approach is you don't have to be bombastic with things. Sometimes you can be really subtle and play
hmm.
very intricate ideas
Yeah.
that carry you through. If I'm doing like so a much more specific example, if I'm playing in a shuffle, doom doom ja doom doom ja doom, ja, and I
Right.
get to I'm playing that kind of feel, and I get to the bridge of the song, and I want to mix it up a little bit. I may go to almost a I forget the name of the rhythm, but it's based off of a like a 6/8 clave, bop bop
Ba-
bop bop
Right.
bop bop, and start and play that on the ride
Yeah.
bridge. So it gets away from the shuffle feel, but it's
Yeah.
connected
You bring
subtly.
it a little closer to the African side of things. Ba, 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 ba,
And
right?
you need to be playing with the people who are good with that too, right? If you do that.
Sometimes, man, you know, uh, Walfredo Reyes Jr. showed me this
Right.
crazy drum set pattern that
Uh-huh.
it sounds like a shuffle, and but it's like displaced by one triplet. And he
Yeah.
sat down and started playing it and goes, "I want you to tell me where the one is." And I thought I knew where the one was.
Yeah.
It was just so unique. And I asked him, "Where'd you find that?" He said, "Oh, it's this West African rhythm that I learned years ago, and I've just learned how to do it on drum set." I was like,
That's
Uh,
awesome.
so
That's
so
awesome.
so I want to talk a bunch about playing with the percussionists, but I'd like to stay on the drum charts a little more because I think people could find it useful. I know I think most people probably drummers have some sort of way of kind of shorthanding, but I know it helped me a lot when I moved here to chart and see other people's charts and that sort of thing when I moved to Nashville. And knowing about the national number system for people who don't know about the national number system, it's a way of, instead of writing, like, let's say you're playing, a song that has the chords that are C, F, and G.
Right.
You could write 1, 4, and 5, and that way you could change it to any key. But anyway, so it uses numbers to tell you the harmonic form of the tune. But anyway, so like what would you recommend to drummers who are just starting to chart, to how to get started doing that?
Um, take a the first thing you want to do is take some basic music theory classes.
Mm.
That Nashville number system is basically a modern, updated interpretation of 16th century harmony analyzation.
Roman numerals and yeah.
So they would do large Roman numerals for all the major chords, and small lowercase Roman numerals for all the minor chords. And this is something you learn in like first year music theory. So
And then
Right.
inversions like 3
right,
5 or 7, all that stuff. Yeah.
you know, taking a music theory course would help tremendously. Now you don't have to go through and learn all these different counterpoint concepts and things like that from advanced composing
Right.
uh but you could just certainly, like, everyone could benefit from a couple of really good foundational music theory courses. It's just going to help you further understand what you do and how to apply it to the music that you're playing.
Yeah. So it's interesting to me because, to me, this, I could geek out on talking about music theory and about charting, but then a lot of people, I think, like, lose them like that. You said music theory. All right, going
Right.
somewhere else, which is interesting. But I think, what do you all think about this? The things that are, do you feel like you've really spent a lot of time doing the hard things? Is that one of the things that sets you apart from maybe just your average drummer? Like
Oh, I mean,
Oh,
I don't know. I mean, everybody's path is different. So there are things that, you know, everyone will experience that
mm.
will their ability to create music and to add to the musical conversation in the moment. I For me, I ended up I, I was at North Texas State for my first year of college, which anybody who knows about North Texas State knows that
Yeah.
it's insane how good all those players are.
it's one of the heavy ones, one of the heavy music schools in the United States.
Really, truly is. And it, you know, it was not the place for me. I learned a lot while I was there, a whole, but it just wasn't my hang. And it's not to say
Mm.
bad about the school. That was on me. Um, and then I wound up, I learned a lot of, snare drum technique and timpani technique and xylophone technique while I was there, and I got exposed to a lot of stuff and a lot of information. And then I left there, and I wound up at the Mississippi University for Women. This is
All right.
Have y'all not covered this ground yet?
so true story. I was in Columbus, Mississippi, at the W. That's what everybody calls it. And because they didn't have a percussion department, I had to choose between. I was going to be a music major, and I had to choose between being a vocal major or a piano major. And I thought, well, okay, piano technically is a percussion instrument,
Yeah.
so let's do that. And I didn't finish. I ended up leaving school, and that's a whole other elongated story in and of itself. But
Mm.
while I was there, I learned a lot by not having the ability to just concentrate every day, every class on drums and drumming.
Mm.
I was supposed to concentrate on music and music theory. And I think that really affected my ability to hear things that maybe a drummer might not most drummers who only study drums, you know,
Yeah.
I hear things that maybe they might not hear. Um, I assume that they do, but it's possible that they don't hear things the same way.
Many, many don't.
No, I can attest to, I learned more music theory later on, later on than probably most, and it changed the way I hear music and the way I think about drumming, for sure, as far as following the, chord progressions and that sort of thing.
Yeah. Well, it's just
So, yeah.
chord progressions. That's a big thing. If you can, which is why, again, a music theory class at least on some basic levels, would benefit everyone. You learn to
Right.
hear that progression, those cadences of 1 4 5, and then if you listen to a lot of jazz, then you start hearing what's known as a 3 6 2 5 1, which is a certain type of cadence.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I, I grew up listening to singer songwriters
Right.
because of my older brother. So I didn't grow up learning a lot of rudiments. I didn't grow up reading music. I grew up listening to great songwriters. And because of that, I grew up listening to great drummers for those songwriters, like Liberty DeVito, the drummers for Harry Chapin, John Denver, Jim Croce, so that's how I grew up. I didn't know how to chart. I was, I grew up listening. Okay. So this chord progression, it informs me on certain emotional content of the song, you know, and so that's how I learned. Um, and so it's a little different. I wish when I was younger that I would have had more tools to at my disposal, but I had to rely on my ears.
I think it worked out fine, man.
It worked out okay. It worked out okay.
Do you guys do you pay a lot of attention to lyrics, and do you learn the lyrics of songs that you're playing?
That's the only thing that I go by. I don't play with a lot of singer songwriters now. I don't do really a lot of that at all. But instead of a chord chart, I wanted the lyric sheet.
Mm.
You know what I mean?
No, it's very important. I mean, in the studio with Zach and the guys, I mean, we'll have a we will have a Nashville number chart, for a new song that we're going to lay down. We will
Right.
definitely do those, but then we'll also have a lyric sheet that allows for us to see what the song is about. And there's a lot of,
Right.
Liberty. It's funny you bring Liberty up. Liberty's really he's a really big proponent of
Ooh.
sure you take into account what the lyrics say, because the lyric might be expressing something very tender. You
Mm-hmm.
don't want to just be back to the drums like they owe you money.
Right.
Something tender.
That's right.
And conversely, so you don't want the lyrics to be all like angry, and then you're like playing it real low key, like a society gig, doing a bossa nova.
So yes, so I'm going to piggyback on that and say that's where, a lot of times drummers who haven't had experience playing with singer songwriters, they don't have that sensibility. So everything tends to sound the same
Oh yeah.
in a lot of circumstances. And as limited as I am with technique and this and that, I always knew that I could at least listen to the singer and judge, gauge where they are in the song and adjust to that.
Even
You know what I'm saying?
the even if you take into account dynamics, you don't have to have a whole bunch of chops. If you can play with a great dynamic range, you could play the same stuff, not
Mhm.
always, but you could stay inside your safety net, your safety
Yeah,
in terms of what you can do, and just play with great dynamics, and that's going to carry you through so much. You know,
I
if
agree.
you really go back and listen to it, man, it's like, you know, a huge chunk of American pop music is four on the floor, backbeat on 2 and 4, and then you're either doing eighth notes or you're doing triplets or sixteenths. You know what I mean? It's like on the hi hat. It's really stripped down. It's really simple, and you think, wow, it's, but when you really start breaking it down, like some of that stuff's just not. It doesn't seem like it's very creative until you start analyzing the dynamic range. Like how somebody's approaching playing just kick, snare, and hi hat.
That could make such a huge difference.
Yeah, it can make an enormous difference.
That's why they talk about drummers having such a good feel.
Yeah.
When they're
Or-
balanced in a certain way and dynamic. Yeah, well, I think there's a reason why that joke never gets old. Is because there's some truth to it. The dynamics. I'm playing as loud as I can because like there that can be a thing, right? With maybe less experienced drummers. Um, but so you don't have. Do either of you happen to have a chart like right next to you that you could just kind of hold up?
I'm sure Chris.
No, no big deal if not. Just curious.
No, I know he does.
So here's one that I was doing for, I don't know if you can read it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Just for my own amusement, the song Xanadu by Olivia Newton-John.
Okay.
And I just Nashville number system. I don't even know if it's right, but I did it to amuse myself. And
So
to,
Why did you do that?
Do you sit down at the piano and you just kind of you find the root notes, or where do you start with that?
yeah, just, listen to it. You did, like, that's how you keep your skills sharp. You got to practice.
Wow, that's
So
great.
that's what I was doing with this. And then back here, hang on. I don't know if my I don't know if my earphones are Reese. Hang on.
That's great.
So this is like this on the other side is like a book that was written by a gentleman named Gary Chafee.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Oh man. Yeah.
I took one lesson with him about 16 years ago.
I wish that I could take a lesson with him. The dude is amazing. I bought this book a long time ago, like 30 years ago, and it was basically what it is it's just like this is gonna like open up your whole brain. I mean, the book looks different now, but I've been working out of this same book for over 30 years, and this thing still kicks my butt every day.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, it's just but this is what I've got laying around.
Yeah.
And so as far as learning a song, learning the chords of a song, how do you approach that? And how, especially at first when you first start doing it, how would you know? Okay, this is the basic progression. These are the root notes. This is a major chord, a minor chord, a diminished chord. How did you start to hear that?
So, like the very, that just comes with practice. Hearing the chord quality, you just kind of figure that out, and then there are a lot of tendencies in American pop music that you can kind of count on being there. So if you're in a minor key, most of your key, most of the chords are going to be minor chords, except for the 5 chord might be a major chord with a dominant 7, and this is getting all like super,
I love it. Hopefully, hopefully everyone who's tuned in is okay with a little theory talk.
No, they should be. No, it's very valuable.
The so but for me to start out, the first thing I'm going to do is like after I've read the lyrics and kind of get a sense for what the song is about. I want to know what the key signature. Not, I don't necessarily need to know the key. Depending on how the drum, what kind of kit I'm playing and how it's tuned up, I may want to know the key. If we've been doing, if we've been tracking songs in E minor and G all day, and then suddenly we switch to one that's in, F. Well, I may want to change the snare drum and retune a floor tom, to get the notes sounding a little bit more harmonious with the key of the song. But apart from that, I need to know the time signature. That's important.
Yeah.
And then the feel. So if you know what the time signature is and the feel, the basic feel. So if somebody says, "Hey man, this is a train beat," then I know it. I know what that is. I could just start there. We start fleshing it out. If somebody says, "Hey man, it's kind of like a rock song," then I know immediately I'm gonna have certain tendencies musically, and that just comes with experience, with just doing a lot of listening and doing a lot of playing. And oddly enough, there have been times where the a producer will say, "Hey, I'm looking for this kind of sound," and to them, that's So, like for example, a producer said to me one time, "Hey, I want to hear this. I want to hear a jazz ride cymbal pattern right through here in this section of the song." I was like, "Oh, okay, wow." And so I kind of played around with some different jazz ideas, mostly just based off ta 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 ta, the basic swing beat. And come to find out, after some talking, I just play a pattern. It didn't work out, so I changed where the pattern's sitting. It didn't work out, and I changed where I'm putting accents, and it didn't work out. And I played a little bit more dotted 8/16, and it's nothing's kind of gelling 100%. And so I said, "Well, tell me exactly which drummer, which jazz drummer are you hearing?
Mhm.
And the producer said, yeah, like Questlove. And I was like, oh, not that Questlove doesn't know how to play jazz. I mean, the dude's amazing, but
Yeah.
Yeah, different
what
sort of drummer.
the producer was really hearing in his head was sort of this certain type of, modern R&B, neo soul
Right.
kind of vibe. And he equated that, and the terminology in his head was, I want a jazz ride cymbal. And
Right.
Mhm.
so that's a huge part of it, as if you're playing session work, or even even in your own band, like understanding terminology together and everybody's on the same page. So
Mhm.
these are important questions to ask before you even dive into a chart.
Right.
Yeah.
Hey, Chris, can you go back to when you were recording at Boutwell Studio with Mark Harrelson and he asked you, can you tang the hump?
Oh God.
Do you remember that?
Yes.
Okay.
I have. Yeah, I've been asked numerous times throughout the years, like, hey man, uh hey, this like being in Mississippi, and it's like the recording studio was in some dude's trailer in the middle of the woods. And the guy comes over the talk back and he goes, "Hey, are you one of them fellers what likes to tang the hump?" And first time I'd ever heard that.
Oh, I thought that was Mark Harrelson that told you that.
Asked me that along as well, but
Okay.
first time I heard it was some guy said, "Are you one of those fellers that what likes to tang the hump?" And I said, "Tang the hump? What are you talking about?" He goes, like on the hump of that ride cymbal. Tang. I said, "Well, yeah, I guess I am what you call a hump tanger." And then
That's awesome.
fast forward, a bunch of years,
Mm.
Stanton Moore comes out with this solo record, and on it, is a song called "Tangin' the Hump," and
No.
I laughed so hard. Oh man,
Oh man.
transcends everywhere. It's like
I
it,
heard that for the first time pretty recently.
That's
I think
great.
it was explained, but I was like, what is that? Yeah.
"Hanging the Hump," man. That's
Yeah. So as far as blues, but John, sounds like you've played your fair share of blues as well.
Woo.
So you know,
Hey,
lived it.
you see
Lightning
that?
Hopkins. Yeah.
You see that?
Who's that? Who's that on your arm?
Listen.
That's this guy,
Lightning
Yeah,
Hopkins.
Lightning Hopkins.
Nice.
listen. I it's taken me a while to kind of get into it, but to like really understand it. But I think I'm at a point of understanding a lot of what Lightning Hopkins was talking about in his songs, and I think I've narrowed it down to he's having a little bit of trouble with his woman.
And that's really all you need to know, right?
That's right.
Just the,
That's right.
So as far as drumming in blues, you know, I ask this for myself and for others because I know just with everything there's evolution of you think, okay, I can play triplets and I can go da, 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 but that's like one feel. So
No.
yeah, exactly. So then there's also like more of a dotted 8/16 sort of feel. And so like how do you recommend people approach getting deeper into the blues? Obviously listening and maybe specific listening, but as far as that feel and that sort of thing.
Okay. Well, I'll go first and then you go.
all right.
Uh, so I think blues comes from authentically from a certain amount of suffering, whether you're white, black, Asian, whatever.
Thus the name.
Everyone has experienced the blues. Um, my favorite blues drummer is Fred Below. He played with J.B. Lenore, however you want to say it. Fred Below played with Willie Dixon, all the blues greats. And there was just such a sense of, it's just feel like I was talking earlier. It's like a drummer has this certain emotion that they're emitting through that rhythm.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, it was it came from some pain. It came from wanting to learn more about that style of music. But that's where I was sort of glad that I didn't come out of the school of reading the notes on the page, because you really cannot teach an authentic blues shuffle, a Texas shuffle. It's very hard to do unless you just embody, you know, unless you've lived a little bit. You got to live a little. And, you know, as far as your modern day drummers go, Chris Layton with Stevie Ray Vaughan was a huge influence on me growing up, just listening to that music. And that's when my band Gravy first started. And I just would listen for hours and hours and hours and I wanted to develop that feel. And it comes from a very looseness. It comes from understanding where the guitar player is, what the guitar player is playing, what the mood of the song is. So that was my experience. It came out of some pain and some willingness to want to learn that style. When I moved to Memphis, Tennessee, for a long time, for about 5 years, and I know this sounds funny coming from a white man, but I paid a lot of dues. I played on Beale Street like many of my contemporaries did, 7 nights a week. And we interfaced with every type of musician that would come through that street. And, it could be January and it's freezing rain. And there's 2 people sitting in the Rum Boogie restaurant wanting to hear your very best stuff, or whether it's BB King's, and you got to give it. It's not a guaranteed packed house. You got to go there, and to access that emotional state and to be able to go there every night, you have to be able to access that experience and whatever pain you've been through, and also the technique of how do you play a shuffle.
Yeah.
What shuffle is that? Is that a Texas shuffle? Is that
that's you're touching on one of the most important aspects.
Go.
Beyond the emotional qualities that you want to be able to bring into it.
Yeah.
You have to understand the emotion, but you have to, somebody says, "Hey, play me a shuffle." Then it's, well, what kind of shuffle? Do you want a Chicago shuffle? Do you want a Memphis shuffle? Do you want a New Orleans style shuffle? Do you want a Texas T-Bone Walker parking lot flat tire shuffle? I mean, there's subtlety to all of it, and one not misplaced, but one changed aspect, of what becomes a double shuffle in some regions of the country is called something else somewhere,
Right.
So again, we're to the terminology, but if you listen to all the different styles of music, it just in subgenres of blues, like you got to know when somebody says, "Hey, play me a blues rumba," you got to know what that means.
That's right.
If it's not enough to play, oh, I can do a shuffle, well, what kind of shuffle?
Right.
Somebody asked me, "Hey, can you play a shuffle?" I said, "What kind of shuffle you want?"
Right.
But it was because I had spent, a handful of years in the Maroon Typhoon, and I know you've been in it, John.
Maroon Typhoon. What is that?
That big 15-passenger maroon van.
We used to call it Vanna Red.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
Instead of Vanna White. Yeah. The Maroon Typhoon.
Yeah.
That's great.
That was some dues paying, it sounds like.
Oh my gosh. Paid
For real.
myself and somebody else too.
Yeah.
But the long and short of it is that we did a lot of listening while you're driving from spot to spot, and so
right,
when you do a lot of listening and you listen together as a band, then, in terms of being a unit, you're listening to the same music, so you're being influenced in the same subtle ways. So that when everybody starts, hey, let's play a shuffle, and you start playing shuffle, you're all gonna be kind of lined up together anyway. Now, when you start freelancing, and you know, every guy on the stage, you got 6 people on the stage, and every one of them's from a different band.
Yeah.
That's where your terminology really needs to get together, in the moment. So if
Specific.
somebody turns around and says shuffle, hey man, do you want T-bone shuffle? You want a parking lot shuffle, or do you want a Chicago shuffle?
Mhm.
Or do you want a double shuffle? And 9 times out of 10, a good band leader on the fly will tell you, hey man, this is a parking lot shuffle. Hey man, give me that
Parking lot shuffle.
give me that Albert King kind of thing.
Oh man.
Albert Collins halftime shuffle.
Yeah.
And if you know what those things are, then you know what those things sound like immediately.
All right. Go ahead, Cliff.
No, you go ahead, Chris. I mean, John.
So this is what impresses me about this guy right here.
Well, he's above you on my screen, but Chris.
Oh, okay, he's above me?
Yeah.
Oh, he's above you? Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't mean to poke your butt, Chris. But anyway, I digress. So this guy, I want to talk. This is the reason why I wanted to have Chris do this interview, is because he's such an amazing encyclopedia of rhythms and just everything, just the whole package. And you've got to have a certain personality. You've got to have a certain character to be able to last this long and to be on the road. And Chris would be on the road if he was making $100 a night or $1,000 a night. Correct? Okay.
Yeah. We talked about it just before you joined. He was saying if he's available, he's going to take the gig.
That's right. And so the one thing that really inspires me about Chris is his work ethic. And no matter what we were doing, if we were just hanging out or whatever, I would always be walking in on Chris having been practicing or doing something on the drums. We never talked about gardening. We never talked about, we talked about regular life, but mostly it was like, wow, man, I just learned this cool beat. And I'm like, dude, I can't do that. What are you talking about? And his work ethic, we did a double drum gig for a while with this cover band. And we did these beach gigs, remember?
Yeah.
And Chris, and I'm Sicilian. Okay. So when I get near the water, I got to go. I got to go to the beach, and I'd be out there and I'd come home and Chris would be like, and I like, man, do you don't want to get some sun? And he's like, no, man, no, I'm fine. I'm just practicing. And his work ethic was just amazing to me. And that spilled over into me. I was like, wow, man, that's just so great. And your work ethic influenced me.
Oh, wow.
And we play nothing like each other. We don't play anything like each other, but it really did influence me. And I think that people need to know, how does this guy get to this certain place?
Mhm.
It doesn't happen magically overnight. You put in the work and you do it. And it's not what you do when everybody's watching you. It's what you do when nobody's watching you that really pays off in the end.
Yeah.
And so I always admired that. Yeah. And so wait a minute, hold on. You see, I took out my gum.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So now I've got some questions for you.
Okay.
So I see we have like 5 minutes left.
if Chris, if you're able to, are you able to go a little bit after? Because we started about 10 minutes late. If you could go a little.
As long as needed.
All right, Chris. Uh, you see, it's hard for us to look at each other and not laugh.
Well, you guys have a long history, which is great.
No, yeah.
Okay, Chris.
Tell you a funny story, because we were doing this double drumming gig together.
Okay.
And the band leader had said, "Hey man, like it'd be really cool if you could like do that whole like crazy Elvin Jones, Tony Williams jazz thing over these songs." These really simple songs. I was like, "Yeah, okay, cool."
It's a widespread panic song.
And so I just start, like really dicing it up, but I'm doing it really quiet because John's laying down these beautiful grooves.
No, I just played way too hard.
But you're laying down this beautiful feel, and I didn't want to mess that up. But I'm just doing what the band leader had asked for. And in the middle of the gig, John looks over at me and he yells over everything. He goes, "Hey man, you keep mixing it up all you want, but I'm serving meat and potatoes on this."
That's awesome.
Oh, it's great. It was so, and but we had a lot of fun, and we
did. I learned a lot.
So did I. I learned I learned a whole lot from doing that.
All right, so Chris Fryar, if you could have one lesson with any drummer of your choice, who would it be and why?
Oh man, can I get two answers?
Depends on Cliff. He's in charge.
Go for it.
Okay, so it would be a tie.
Okay.
So a drum lesson from any person, it'd come down to one of two guys. So the first of which would be Stuart Copeland. Stuart Copeland has such a unique way of approaching and hearing music. And the first record I ever tried to play along to, I get my drum set at 14. That's kind of a late start. And the very first record I put my headphones on, try to play along to, Ghost in the Machine by the Police. And then it just started from there. I've been a fan of Stewart's for a long time. And he, like I said, he never does things like you expect it to go. And I think that's such a beautiful thing. And I'd love to just sit down with him and pick his brain. And also I'd love to learn how he composes music, because he does a lot of soundtrack stuff. And I find I'm never left with a feeling of boredom when I listen to his compositions. And I'm never left with the feeling of thinking that it was predictable.
Yeah, and it seems like his personality is sort of like that as well.
Yeah. So on the other side of that, like, I think the one person that I would love to sit down and have a drum lesson with, I think it's my humble opinion that like one of the most well-rounded drummers alive is Vinnie Colaiuta.
Oh yeah.
He is capable of doing all of these incredible things.
Right.
And he doesn't do them. So I'm serious. Like he's just like, he waits for the right musical moment to pull out this just monster idea, and he'll do things that just scramble your noodle.
Yeah.
It looks like he's just like, whatever. It's just like scrambling an egg, it's, it just looks so, I don't want to say Monday, but like you can tell he's put in so much time and so much practice. And then on top of that, he's able to hear layer upon layer upon layer.
Right.
Oh, that would be the, so it's a tie between those two.
Okay.
They both worked with Sting. So there's that.
Right. So before my last question, I remember when you and I got together at your house and you transcribed this Vinnie Colaiuta drum notation where there was it was so displaced that it sounded very awkward.
Oh yeah.
But you wrote it out.
Yeah.
Do you remember that song?
I do. That was the it's called "I'm Tweaked," the attack of the 20-pound pizza, I believe it was called.
Oh, well, there you go.
The first track on Vinny's eponymous uh, solo record that he did
Right.
back in I think it was back in the '90s, and I remember seeing it in a music store and just buying it immediately because it had his name on it. I knew he played drums on it, and the first time I listened to it, I was you're gonna know who these people are. No one else is gonna know who these people are. But I was in the band. I was in the Maroon Typhoon with Rob and Jay, and we put the CD in. They're like, "Yeah, this will be cool," and it starts going, and Vinny starts displacing the beat, and it's
Yes.
over a 16. I think it's a 16 bar pattern, or maybe an 8 bar pattern. The beat displaces by 1/16 note, and it's seemingly random, but it works out to be dead on the money. If you put a click to it, it is so dead on the money.
Are
And
you hip to that, Cliff?
I'm
Do you?
not. No.
I'm not either. I mean, I'll have to go back and listen to it now.
Yeah, I've never heard that before. I'll have to check it out.
yeah, it's real.
Okay.
So I'm in the we're in the van
Wow.
in, and as it's going, Rob, as it's going, he starts displacing, and I'm like, yeah, this is awesome. Rob goes, hey man, I think they sold you a bomb CD. We got to go back.
It's got a skip in it.
That's what he said. He thought the CD had been scratched. I said, no,
That's
no, no.
interesting.
I think that's supposed to be happening. He goes, how do you know? I said, listen to the bass guitar. The bass guitar is not moving.
Oh man,
And
you're so smart.
he says, oh. And then like after we kind of, we kind of figured out that the melody, the rhythm track, other than the drum kit, was not moving at all. It was staying steady. And yeah, it was
Right.
that blew my mind. That whole just first listen to that. But yeah, I remember that. I had to write it out so I could figure out how it was done.
Oh, okay. Here's my last question, and I'm asking this not to take up time but I think it's important.
Okay.
Okay. All of us are professional drummers. Can you share a little bit about what has been the rhythm of your daily routine since COVID-19? And I don't mean to rhyme that, but it did rhyme. But what's I get cagey, man. I get cagey. If I'm at home too long, I'm just not myself. And somebody like you, you're such a family guy, but you balance being on the road seemingly just so well, dude. And I'm just like this psychotic, like I got to get out of here. And what is your daily routine since all this has happened for these other drummers and people that might want to know? What do you
So,
do?
well, all right. So, but just as the way it all happens and pans out, um, I am a grandfather, and my granddaughter, who just recently turned 2, she stays here at the house with us all day, every day during the week. So I wake up. Sometimes I get up before she gets in, but her mother will bring her over and drop her off, and she'll sleep in the bed for a little bit. But I'll slip out of the bed and I'll get some coffee. And if it's if I feel up for it, I'll start working on some things. Just basic, just get the hands moving.
Like
Keep
what?
So I'll do Great Hands for a Lifetime by Tommy Igoe. I think that advanced workout warm up is absolutely incredible. And
Mm.
then I have a bunch of grid exercises. That's a marching band kind of term that. So I'll use these grid exercises to not only know how in shape or out of shape I am, but they're good to get to keep me in shape. Um,
Wow.
it's a and then I can use grid exercises, but if there's something I want to work on, a specific kind of pattern between the hands that I want to work on, then I'll figure out a way to create a grid and to use that pattern that I want to work on in order to improve, and I'll insert it in. So like for example, um the bluzda, you know which essentially is a flam drag. If you're into rudimental speak, if you speak rudiments, it's the bluzda is like a flam drag, but I wanted to learn how to do it better. And so I just like pluck it, the blues, blues, so I was like, just figure it out and do it. And that's how I would work it out. So I'll do that in the mornings. And then I spend a huge amount of my day every day chasing around a toddler. And
Okay.
Me too. I
it's
have a 3-year-old.
probably one of the most rewarding things. I it's very easy to get down on the whole, like, just to let the this this time we're living in, you know, with economic shutdowns and sort of
Cr-
stay-at-home orders. It's really easy to let it just like weigh you down, and
Yeah.
because our industry shut down.
Chris, that's my point. That's my question. How are you staying positive? How are you doing this? Because of the grandkids? Because they're over there and
I,
they're infusing you with that energy?
that's part of it. I am I'm a silver lining kind of guy. So I try
Okay.
for in any situation, I try to look for either a lesson to be learned,
Okay.
which can only yield positive results. If you've learned something from an experience, even if it's what not to do, you
Yeah.
know, proved yourself.
Right.
So it's a way of moving forward as a human being. Um, but it's really easy to let all this get you down. And I just try to find the silver linings everywhere. And they are everywhere for me. This is probably developmentally for a toddler. This is one of the most important stretches of time, between the ages of 18 and 36 months.
Yeah.
Right now, I'm in the middle of it, and I get to be a part of my granddaughter. I get to be a part of her life, and she gets to be a part of mine, and we're best pals.
That's great.
So I ordinarily would be gone a lot. And so the silver lining for this all this shutdown and stay at home stuff is I get to be at home and I get to play with my granddaughter. That's really, really a cool thing for me. Another cool thing is it's forcing me to, because you can't go out and play. So you got to play here at the house, or everybody in this modern era, everybody kind of has, if you have some access to some technology and some equipment, it's very easy to have a recording rig in your home. So I've been taking the time to learn how to be a better engineer. I'm taking time to learn how to be a better producer. So I'm honing a different skill set that I didn't necessarily possess too much of before. So this is another way. So I'm trying to learn, still trying to keep my chops up in terms of learning new ideas as a drummer, but I'm trying to learn new ideas as a musician as well, because it's more than just the drums.
Yeah.
It's
That's
just some
beautiful.
you know
Well,
finding
that's good because, I know we're out of time. I just want to say, I had I had resisted this whole Zoom thing until I met Cliff, and Cliff started interviewing a friend of mine, and then Cliff started this whole thing about interviewing other drummers, and now he's got this whole thing going. And what inspired me about Cliff is like, I was like, how are you dealing with this? And he was like, man, I just try to put something on the calendar, you know, so
yeah,
that I have something to do every day.
a
And
little
what you both have shared is just, that's very cool. Um, and that's something that I'm going to take to heart. I'm a person who, I'm a silver lining guy, but I'm also a dark cloud guy for all you people out there. So it's like, whoa, man, where's the balance?
Oh, oh,
I'm a Libra.
okay.
I'm a Libra. It's all about the balance. Don't laugh, bro. I'm saying it's like, oh my God, please just let me be able to, bridge the gap.
Yeah,
that it's that's a tough thing. Uh, it, it you know I th- for me, I just take it one day at a time, and I don't think about, if you've got something on the calendar to look forward to, it's
Yeah.
it's certainly going to help your improve your spirits. I have found, it's like, hey, I know I got this thing going on, and I start getting excited a week out, and then a couple of days before, and then the day before, and then an hour before, I get like really excited to do something.
Mm,
And having work to do.
yeah.
We've recorded a couple singles while we're on shutdown, and so
Wow.
having that, is something to do. But every day is different for me. I don't necessarily try to find balance. I'm wired in such a way that I'm going to go crazy. If I try to maintain balance, because my life is just so unbalanced. So which you know how it is. You got a toddler in your house. You know, you it may be time to practice. Hey, sorry, honey, I
Right. Right.
double paradiddles for an hour, and the toddler's going, I don't care about that.
Yeah. No way. Yeah.
Toddler's like, hey, drumstick,
I know,
Practicing has
man.
never been such a challenge before having
It's
a
so
little one.
good to hear that coming from uh, contemporaries who have children and grandchildren.
yeah, it's just, you just gotta, for me, I don't, like I said, I don't worry about the balance. I just worry about taking each day. Sometimes, y- when you're dealing with a 2-year-old, it's, you just take it hour by hour.
You know what somebody told me one time, and then I'm gonna shut up. I'm gonna let you guys uh, sign off. But a very important friend of mine told me one time, it's not about balance, it's about harmony.
Yeah. See, oh,
Okay, you feel me?
yes.
I like that because
It's
there
more
can be a
about
lot of pressure
harmony
to
because
balance.
there's no such thing as balance.
Yeah. It's yeah.
That's a very beautiful and eloquent way of stating it. It's,
And with this with you have to have some dissonance to resolve to harmony too.
Oh man, Cliff,
right.
thank you for agreeing to interview Chris and allowing me to be a part of this interview.
Oh,
Thank you.
thank you for proposing it and setting it up and getting us in touch with each other. And Chris, thank you so much for doing this. I would love to talk with you guys again because I think we could go longer. So let's talk about talking more. Um, and I want to let people know what's coming up. But I really appreciate both of you for being on Clif Chats. Um,
You got it.
so so here are some things coming up. So next Friday at 5:30 p.m. So a half hour later, I'm chatting with Damien Erskine, who's a great electric bass player. He's the nephew of Peter Erskine and plays in
Yeah.
one of Peter
Oh
Erskine's
yeah.
group. And he's in Portland, Oregon, where I used to live, and I've always loved how he plays. And he's a super cool guy, super mellow guy. The following week, October 7th, is the okay, no, wait, hold on. Yeah, October 9th is a live conversation with drum circle facilitators, and John Scallici will be on, as well as many other drum circle facilitators, and we'll be talking about what everyone's doing, how everyone's coping, and what everyone's up to. Um, then on Friday, October 16th at 5 p.m. is Clif Chats with Jonathan Scales, who is a if you don't know who he is a great he's probably in his early 30s, steel pan player, and he has an awesome trio, kind of fusion jazz like, and he's done some collaborations with Bela Fleck. Really some cool music. So I'm looking forward to talking with him. Then the Friday, October 23rd at 5 p.m. and this is all Central Time that I'm talking is Clif Chats with Ari Honig, which you guys probably know. Talk about heavy, right? He's a heavy. I think he's from North Texas. I think he's in North Texas as well.
So, yeah.
Um, and then the following Friday, October 30th, is a Clif Chats with J.D. Walter, who's a great jazz vocalist out of New York. And then the
Awesome.
following week, I have a bunch of New York folks. Clif Chats with Rez Abbasi, who, if you all don't know who he is, phenomenal guitarist. So anyway, so that's going on as far as the chats, and then there's other doing a series on Wednesdays that are it's found object household sound workshops for kids. That's every Wednesday, 10:30 Central Time. It's a 30-minute thing. Yes, if you want to, Chris, if you want to get your granddaughter, it's a granddaughter, is that right? Yeah. If you want to have it, check it out and bang on a pan or something, you could do that. And then there's some hand drumming classes also, which I'm, as we talked about, John, I'm doing everything online right now, though.
It's awesome, man.
I'm looking forward to hearing about some of the in-person stuff that you're doing. But
Sure.
thank you so much, both of you, for talking with me. And stay on for just a second.